Hello, and welcome to the 200th episode of the Low Code Campfire. This is the episode for Friday, June 2025. I am Dale Warner, Head of Support for Plantinap, and we'll be um, starting off our episode here in just a second. It is a special episode, but we do it every week. It is the opportunity to get together and share the techniques and challenges and experiences in working with our low-code platform. We encourage you to bring something to show or something to ask and be ready to help with ideas and suggestions. Everyone's welcome at this meeting, from first-time users to years-long users. We record all of them and put them on YouTube. You can get to that on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/plantanap. We'll run this agenda where we will say hello because we're a friendly group, and then we'll go around the campfire, anything that you brought that you want to talk about today, and then we will continue on with other things like contributions to our campfire website, new releases, community posts, things like that. After an hour or so, we'll go into our Afterglow segment. That's where we hang out for a few more minutes with the recording off, raise the first virtual adult beverage of the weekend, and just enjoy each other for a few more minutes. So do engage with us. Jump in. You can jump in the conversation. You can take the screen share. You can chat with us. Um, you can submit questions and topics in advance. I don't think we have any. I didn't prepare any for today, but you can use this QR code to get to do that, or you can send an email to support@plantinap.com and I'll get it on the agenda. So here's our first programming note in recognition that this is the 200th episode. I don't know why I like to see the odometer roll over, but we have a custom Zoom background for anyone attending today. If you want to, and if you ever want to show off that you were here for the 200th, I don't know why you would, but I'll do that anyway. Um, so here's the link to that. And with that, I'll say hello, all.
Hello.
Morning.
Hmm.
Good morning.
So we go right into first call. Did anybody bring something that you wanted to show off or do or ask?
Just an ask, actually. First, a thank you for last week's campfire where we talked about business stuff. And I'm curious if you could send me the screen with the pricing and a couple of the ones that, or the whole batch would be fine too.
Um, I would be happy to send you, I can put it out here, the release to the video. We're not just putting it in the playlist, but I'd be happy to do that if
Ah, that
that would
sounds
work.
great.
Let me get that. And I know Bogdan took it um, as an action item to get the contracts in shape, and that would include pricing and things like that as well. But we can sure put up what we talked about. Um,
Great. Was the overall reaction back in the office? Um, positive? Any additional comments to be concerned about, or just everything that was discussed is pretty much uh, was pretty much
there,
good.
there wasn't any. Oh no, why did we say that? If that's what you're asking.
Good.
Uh, no, it's just in Bogdan's court to get that done. Um,
Cool.
is anybody else want the playback from last week? All right. If you do, just put it on the chat. See, this is the part where I miss having a trusted helper, because I could just throw it over my shoulder and it would happen. but I'm dancing out here all by myself. All right. Any others on the first call? Well, I've put together a few things to talk about, and I think some of them will be very interesting that they are coming up. So let's dive in. First off, I don't know if you noticed, but we've done a soft release of version 1.27. So if you're running a 1.26 system and you navigate over to updates, you'll see the update to 1.27. I say soft release because we haven't actually thrown out an announcement that it's out there and available, but it is. And um, we've been upgrading our systems to it and having good success with that. So feel pretty good about recommending it when you're ready, as always. And I'd be happy to talk about it. We've talked about it before, just in terms of process or doing the work of adding an upgrade that you always want to have a backup of your site. And so that would be the file system and the SQL database that you're willing to use. Best practice is that you do it when the site is inactive. There are techniques available to make this to force the site to be inactive, but the the upgrade succeeds best when there is no activity on no attempts to access the site while you're trying to do the upgrade. Do the upgrade if you have the ability at all. Do a clone system update first to find the things that and to do your user acceptance testing, and then do it for production, do it for real. So always on support, happy to work with you on any questions you might have about the update process, and including ways to check to make sure that it's that everything installed correctly as expected. But yeah, we want you to succeed with that, and when you're ready to tackle it, I'll be happy to help. Any 1.27 questions?
Just a comment and a thank you. I noticed from the documentation, the release notes for 127, that the minimum version is 9.11 and the maximum version is 9.13.7. So that saves me quite a bit of consternation. I can get my DNN file manager stuff up to snuff um, on my Planet Amp sites.
Good. We're going to touch on some of that on that, particularly the breaking changes that happen in there. So I'll bring that up here in just a minute as well. Good. Let's move on.
Say, Dale, doesn't 127 also have the file manager included?
It does. That's a new feature. So the DNN, I mean, as Don mentions, now that gets the DNN one up and running and more reliable. But yes, we have our new file manager one, and we can show that off as well. Um, yeah, so let's do that. Natural tie-in here. Um,
Yeah,
we have a participant. Thank you, Mark.
somebody jumped in.
I had to Google to figure out how to do that.
Um, um, so yeah, what Don just mentioned, the breaking change that we've moved the minimum DNN version requirement to 9.11.2. I guess it's worth um, in our important notes section, and I'm going to bring that up in a different tab. But we have this nice matrix, and it hasn't been updated yet. Our help publishing system experienced a negative event over the last week, and so it hasn't published yet. But this when 127 is listed, there'll be a minimum version. So the old minimum for 1.26 was 991. You're going to want to upgrade your DNN system in order to take advantage of 1.27. And uh, what else? This is the big one, or that could be a big one, that we've mentioned this before. Version 1.27 requires SQL Server 2016 or higher. And if you don't have SQL Server 2016, um, that's that might be some effort on your part to get upgraded. But it didn't. Our previous SQL Server version was SQL Server 2012. That's been more than 13 years old. So and there's some features that we want to take advantage of in the newer one. So um, that could be an issue. Then just going on with that. There's a compatibility setting within the database that says that you, even if you have SQL Server 2016 or higher, uh, your database might be running at a lower minimum, and that's just a quick database setting. But you've got to have both of those things. You have to be at 2016 and above, and the database has to be running at 2016. Our update pages have been modified to try to enforce this before you can upgrade to version 1.28. So if you when you install the final hotfixes for 1.26, I think I just said the wrong version. But when you install the hotfixes for 1.26, it should warn you if you don't have the minimums for that are required for 1.27. This other one is this other breaking change is probably not going to bother anybody, but we changed workflow outputs. I think I've explained this in the past. If anybody has a question about it, in general, when you were doing, if you have a workflow that calls, I'm sorry, if you call a workflow from somewhere else, all of the outputs from the workflow were being um, passed as tokens, whether you asked for them or not, back to your to whatever called it. So a workflow calling a workflow, if you had 10 outputs, you'd get all 10 outputs, whether you provided requested them or not, we gave a token name or not. And anybody relying that was bad behavior on our part. We should only, if there's 10 outputs and you only say that you want one of the outputs, that should be the only output that you get back. So it was bad behavior on our part, and we fixed it. If you relied on that, then updating this could. Um, I'm sorry, if you relied on it, this new update would break for you. So um, we're just being more explicit. You have to ask uh, for the tokens that you want. Does that cause anybody any consternation?
Dale,
Okay.
for me, it's not consternation, but I'm actually wondering, can I have that if I want it? Can I have a variable number of outputs from a workflow?
Um, yes. So a workflow, I'm sorry, let's a little bit complex. Not a yes or no answer. Um, when you define a workflow, you get to decide how many outputs it has in the design of the workflow. And then when you the action that we create for you so that you can call that workflow has all of them. If you, and this might be one of those things that's better visually. Let's see if I can find an example. We have a workflow. Let's find one that might have some outputs. I don't know. Let's take a look. Okay, so this has one output, the file information. This is send a user list to Google Drive. So if I were doing a new workflow and I call that in my process, so that's execute, send the user list to Google Drive. The output field, that whatever output fields that were specified are available to use. In the past, if you didn't put anything on this line, file information would be, this one would be created for you, even though you didn't ask for it. If you put something here, FI, so the new behavior is if you put something here like FI, or FInfo, or whatever you want to call it, FInfo is going to get created for you. If you don't put anything here, you won't get file information back. So are you with me on so far?
Yes.
Okay. And then we have another action, execute workflow, that whatever workflow that you call, the outputs are, where are the outputs? Base output token name. The outputs are returned as a JSON. So you get all of them back and you control what the base name is, in this case, out, and then you have to call them out : file info, for example. So you don't have to use it when you're using the action that gets created for you, the first variation. You don't have to use all the outputs, but and you won't get them by default. For this one, for this execute workflow action, if you want the outputs, you have to provide a name, and you get all of them. But they're not going to, because you provided the name, it's not going to accidentally collide with something else that you might have. Okay.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Is any part of that an answer to your question?
Well, I confess that my question was not as related to the updated information that you're sharing today. I was just curious if I could get a variable number of outputs from a workflow. And I think you've shown me that I can get it as JSON. I was actually wondering if I could get it as tokens or something that I could refer to in code without having to parse the JSON. And I think I've asked this question before, and I've already been given an answer. I was just wondering if this was
Yeah, so
usable information.
if your workflow generates a bunch, I mean, your workflow is isolated, and it might generate a bunch of tokens internally, and they don't automatically pass back. That's kind of um, a normal subroutine behavior. If you want to pass them back, you, you have a couple of choices. One is create more outputs and pass them one at a time across the outputs. The other is that you can put them together as a JSON, and then parse that JSON on the other side. But there isn't any way to say, hey, I don't want this isolation behavior. The isolation behavior comes as a default and as the only behavior.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Sure. Right. So the release notes are out there. It's linked from the if you go into the updates page, it'll show you the release notes. You can get to them before you upgrade, but I put them here on the chat as well if you want to peruse them. lots and lots. And I think we've done some episodes in recent past telling you about all the different things that are in 1.27. So, and I'm busy working away at documenting lots of the new features. It's just, and they are documented. They're just not published yet. So back to our publishing problem. Um, so we'll catch up with that as well. I have been trying to improve our documentation, and I'm just kind of taking a little bit of an A to Z approach here. So within our actions, I first came to authorize.net, and we have some kind of automatically generated documentation that in some cases pretty simplistic, just shows you the parameters that were there. But I have worked to add um, throughout this authorize.net a more detailed what it is and what it does and why you'd use it and things like that. And so um, I'm going to work my way through the actions over time and improve this. If there's any action that is particularly dense and you want to and document it, I'd be happy to change the order, push something that you're interested in up to the top. So feel free to open a support ticket and ask for more information, or if you have a favorite one that you want to call out here on the chat, I'll do that as well. Okay.
Just real quick, I wanted to comment, having been there and knowing the process, I just want to applaud the effort. It's very, very much appreciated.
Well, interestingly, I've been and probably not surprisingly been taking advantage of AI to do the work, and
but it's still effort,
it
even though,
is.
yeah, I know that.
Yeah, it you come out AI will do 95% of the work, and that comes out with markdown that has to be put in the right place and edited down and make sure that we're not no hallucinations. And so yeah, it is a detailed effort. On the other hand, if you can't, I mean, support was always happy to answer the questions, but it's easier to be able to just look up something and actually find a useful answer instead of having to guess at it. So, all right. So I'm working my way through. Thanks for that, Patrick. I have had need to make a couple of Campfire contributions, and I thought that they're kind of interesting. So let's, in case you have the need for this. So one is, and this was actually from a support question. One was the need to, if you have an entity that has 100 properties, which one of our regular members has one of these, and and you want another entity like that, rather than having to go into the entity builder and retype all the names, there's this temptation to try to import a an entity. Did I show this one already? I don't think I did. Anyway, um, so the idea is that our entity export has the ability to move an entity from one system to another, but it doesn't have the ability to copy an entity and to create a clone of an entity with the same properties. So this is a workaround that will do that. It should always be used carefully with backups because, well, it just should. But you basically take an export of the entity and you give it the new name and the new plural name and generate, and it gives you an import that you can import back to your system that'll match the original. It doesn't handle all the cases. It handles the common cases. So um, the raw properties, the what do we call them? Um, Core properties, not entity properties, are copied. So if you have the need, this will help. Um, yeah, here it is. Subordinate tables or complex dependencies might not work as you would expect, but simple entities will work. So that's one. The other is we had a question member supporter community, and this was that we have there's this option in text, in SQL queries that's tokenized text. And I need to get logged in on here so we can see this. So in a SQL query data source for a dropdown, there's this nice option here, tokenize text. And um, I, so I can show you what it does, and then you can decide whether it's worth investing, how to know what it to do. So this is two drop downs, one that has that checkbox checked, the other doesn't have it. So the one that does not have it checked, we see the name of the person, and then whether an indicator whether or not they're an administrator, and then there's this token where we're saying uh, we're doing an evaluation, a dynamic evaluation. Does this person have a role? The ID for user 24 is the one we're using, and so do they have the administrator role? But notice the token isn't evaluated, it's just showing up as a token. So then this one over here has the same thing, and then all that evaluates down into false. So the net effect is in your dropdown, instead of doing all the work in SQL, maybe you want to lay off some of the work to a token that gets evaluated as the dropdown gets loaded. And maybe it's something that you couldn't do with SQL, like query a external data source, um, be, so anything a workflow can do, call some other API to make a determination. So it's a nice way to be very dynamic with the list. Okay. So is this of interest to anybody, or shall I move on? I'll just
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing the query, see how you did it.
Sure.
Yes, please. I'm
Mhm.
interested.
Okay. So the trick is that again, these two are exactly the same, but the trick is that if you simply, I mean, if you do a query and there's a token in the query, the token gets evaluated before the query gets executed, which then doesn't solve your problem. So my solution, and there's probably others, my solution was in the places where you would normally have brackets that I used some other delimiter, in this case braces. So I have an opening brace where there should be an opening bracket. I have a closing brace. So then this thing doesn't end up being a token on the way into SQL. It's wrapped in a replace, so these get replaced by SQL. Uh, so it's kind of a tricky dance. You want to not have it can't be a token visibly here, but by the time it gets done with SQL, um, it is in the form of a token, and then tokenized text will take the return whatever comes back from SQL and says, okay, if there's a token there, I'm going to evaluate it. So this pattern could be used, I think, pretty easily in anything that you wanted to tokenize. So that's where to go look at that. Questions? Ben has his hand up. Is that for this or something else?
That's for this. I was just gonna add a little thing to it. I notice how you're doing the curly braces and then replacing them with the brackets because, like you were mentioning, if you had the brackets in there, it would try to um, tokenize it right away. One way that you can also get around that, because doing it this way, as you could see, you have nested replaces. You can do a char 91 and char 93. Char 91 is the open bracket, char 93 being the closed bracket. So you can avoid having to do multiple replaces. And instead of using the curly brace where you have the open curly brace, use char 91, closed curly brace, use char 93. That inserts the actual square brackets in there, but it doesn't trigger the code to try to do the evaluation at that moment.
Perfect. That's the exact. It's all about the technique and finding a way to overcome so that it doesn't get replaced on the way before running the SQL query. It comes out with brackets, and so that's another good method. Thanks for mentioning it. Replace probably uh, adds some. I mean, the way that you mentioned is probably more efficient in that it just this has to build it up and then do an exercise. So SQL has to do some extra work. You can decide what's best in your case. Um, so good. Thanks for mentioning. And I did a walkthrough video with this as well. If you want to see probably the explanation of the whole thing. So walk through how it worked. And then it's kind of funny because it turned out that this person asked the question, what does tokenized text and SQL queries? I want to use that, and I really think it was not the solution to the particular problem, but I'd already invested all the time to do the research to figure this thing out. So getting it documented was and yeah, was worth doing. Anyway, that was that. So two contributions there. What else? Moving on. So last time which was I guess 2 weeks ago, we talked about the idea that we have our Kanban board that where we're doing things that I think are probably more relevant to you. And so I'm just going to start reporting some of these things so that you know that they're coming. And the first one that I'm happiest about is that this long asked for integration between Tabs Pro and listings in Bootstrap 5 on tab change is done. It's waiting in the wings as a release, as an update in 127. And I did the user acceptance testing on this yesterday to prove that it was working as expected. And I'll just show it off because I think it's definitely useful and better than it was. So I'm going to navigate to this page, and I've got the network console open. I'm focusing on these fetch/XHR, and so we only see these things that happen after the page loads. And if you were to look at these, none of these are, there's a listing here for users and a listing here for random numbers. Notice when I click over to users that we get a query that runs, and this is in the background. We're going and getting all the information for the users. So it delayed until we actually tabbed into that, and then notice too that if I tab away and come back, it doesn't do it again. So this is a nice way to defer the activity until somebody actually cares enough to go look at the tab. This randoms one, this is my large 800,000 record table, and it takes about 5 seconds or so to load up all these. There it is there, 4.5 seconds to load up all these random numbers. And now that it did this, if I tab away and come back, that it doesn't do it again. So if your use case is I have this page that has 10 listings on different tabs, and the user only goes into the one that they care about, you're not loading the other 9. You're only loading the ones that they are interested enough to do. Of course, they have to wait then when they click on the tab for it to actually load, but it's a lot more efficient from a user standpoint not to generate the things that they don't care about, and so if that works in your use case, that they click on the tab and they see it load and uh, does that, then that's it's going to save you effort, save you performance. These settings are appear in. Let me move this out of the way. This is the tabs integration. It says legacy only, but that's a lie. And this refresh grid when tab is activated, this is the other choice. So if you click this, and I'm actually going to do this on the not on the randoms, but on the other one. So let's go to the users grid here and change the tabs integration to load every time you go there. So if you need it to be, if something from one tab is changing the other tab, then this will force the refresh every time you go to the tab. And so you can have this mixed behavior. So let's go back to inspecting here on our network. So I go to users, where is it? And we see users has refreshed. Go to randoms, and we can see this 5-second query out to randoms, and it refreshes. I go back to users, and it queries again. Go to randoms, and it does not. So you can choose whether you need it to refresh or not. So lots of choices. And I think all this isn't terribly big news to anybody here because you've probably all used the Bootstrap 3 version that did the same thing.
But it's really exciting to see it into the Bootstrap 5 template. That's
Agree.
Agree. I know that I have,
Yeah.
I think, at least 4 clients that are waiting for just this.
Yes.
So this is 1.27 and a hotfix soon to come. And if you're on 127 and you want the hotfix, I will hand it to you over the fence without you having to wait for it anyway. So that's a cool one.
That's only in 127, correct? Just make sure.
Yes.
Okay.
So done is kind of our internal code for we finished that thing. We have another stage that's quality assurance and user acceptance testing, which I've kind of lumped together. But when something comes out of development, our quality assurance team takes a look at it and says, does this do what we said we wanted it to do? And then UAT is when our user acceptance team, which oftentimes is me or other senior low coders. This is where we say, yeah, let's think about this in a low code perspective. Does it really do what we need it to do? Did we hit the target and not break anything else? So anyway, those two things are both phases of the final steps before we say it's done. Okay, so UAT. This is quality assurance. So there's an issue where if you're using dynamic forms, you can add a date time picker. using an action or add a drop-down action, and now those things have the ability to make them read only or enable conditionally. Previously, they didn't have that ability to do that. So I'm not sure that's earth-shattering to anyone here, but it's coming as a hotfix again. I believe that's I'm not sure whether that's 126 or 127. So the other major phases is in development. Our team is actually actively working on it, and code review is they've done the work, and um, a supervisor is looking, and somebody else looks at it and says, "Yeah, we did that right. It's worth testing." So in code review, this um, send email, our send email action um, previously is anyway. Bottom line is we're trying to get to using OAuth that most SMTP providers up until now it's been a username password kind of scenario, and now there's um, some providers like Microsoft don't like that anymore. They don't like the username password thing because it's hackable or more hackable. So was introduced, and so we're trying to catch up and make sure that if you want to use an OAuth provider, that the send email action will work. So that's done, and somebody's checking it out to make sure that the code is good. Then this one that we talked about kind of at length the last time, allow users more flexibility to style listings. So this is where there's going to be the ability to add classes in um, in listings based on columns and rows. And I'll tell you that our product team, and particularly Bogdan is quite passionate about how the product works and doing things when we take them on, trying to do them the right way and really thinking about it. So while this was originally focused on the data table, we actually thought about this in terms of card view and calendar view as well to try to make it so that you can style all those things in the right ways. So that's in code review. So that's pretty exciting.
That's awesome.
I'm very excited about that, Dale.
Yeah.
See, we're going to tempt you guys to upgrade to 127 through features. Carrot and stick. Okay. And then things that we've actually assigned to a developer, and they're in some state, whether they've begun or halfway through, I don't know, but in development. Um, some of the pages that are part of our product, like the users page or the updates page, are actually done using our product, using forms and listings and tabs. And these things have, if I'm sure, I suspect most of you know that these have not reliably deployed on every update. So and the consequence of that is sometimes you've gotten into a circumstance where we say, yeah, if you'll delete out all of our pages under configuration and remove them from the recycle bin, they'll come back. They'll just magically come back. And um, I just out of curiosity, if you've had to do that ever, raise your hand. I just want to see if everybody's had that experience. But um, we want to get to the spot, obviously, where you don't have to think about that. And so we have this thing in development where it's happening. All right. Thank you. Almost everybody has, so good. And then one of our regulars, not here today, uh, has uses this repost data action. This is the ability to take information and put it in the format of a form submission and submit it to some other form, something non-Plantain app. And so repost data action wasn't working in certain cases, and so that's in development to get it fixed so that they can move on to Bootstrap 5. Okay, so that 10 minutes of what we're working on, is that of interest or is that too much information?
I think that was great. Love
Yes.
seeing that.
I love to be able to report it. We've have a history of things going into the pile, and it's a surprise when they come out and they take longer. So being able to provide some direction about things that are important to you and then letting you know that they're in progress is feels good for me. Okay, so now we got to circle back. Those are all the things that I prepared. Community forum, there wasn't too much out there this time. So,
Ben has a feature request.
what? Well,
It's a good one.
are you doing feature requests as we talk, or has this been out there for a while?
No, I did it before the meeting.
Uh, Interesting. Allow for empty to field if it's just a BCC. Um, I don't know um, the email rules around this. Is this allowed?
Yeah, you can do it in Outlook and anything else. Like when you send an email, if you supply a BCC, it doesn't matter if the two is blank because you are sending it to someone. It's just that no one is going to be privy to who else has received it. But in the action, even though I supply a BCC, if I don't put a two, then I get an error saying that you must have a recipient.
I can see the use of that as well, although what I typically do is come up with some email address for the to field with a name that somewhat describes what the recipient's category is, kind of a thing. But yeah, I could see that just leave it blank and then just BCC gets the email.
Yeah, like in my case, it's just basically where I'm kind of mimicking the idea of like that listserv thing where I'm sending an email to a bunch of people, but I don't necessarily want everyone to see all the emails that are on the list. So by doing it as a BCC, they get the email, but they don't see anyone else.
I do exactly the same thing, and that's the listserv is the to address name basically is how I do it.
Well, right, that's if you have a listserv, but if you don't, then all you're going to end up doing is causing a bounce back because it's a falsified email address.
I send it to a legitimate email. It's one of my own as
Mm,
the to address, but it's just they may look at the to address and say who's that, but more than likely they'll just go in and read the message, which is what's
right.
the experience, and the from and the to name kind of lets them know that it is meant for them because they're part of that group. That's how I do it. But yeah, just having a blank one and letting Planet App work the way other mail servers do would be nice.
Well, I'm just curious as can be. So this is the thing that you're saying that blank two, does it just blow up? Um, well, it didn't throw an error. I don't know. Let's see if we actually have a.
You did it as a CC, not a BCC though, so I don't know if there's a difference in the logic for that.
Well, we'll try all of it. First of all, I have so many things I can't get. There it is. Tester email did so that it did send it that way. So now let's try it as a BCC. No, we're not throwing an error, and in fact, I just got that. So upgrade to 127. If it, um, I have never tested this in 126. I happen to do it in 127, but it does seem to work. Let's see what it, just for fun, what does it look like here? So it says, in my inbox, we say who it's from, but we don't have any to details. And show original. To is blank. So it looks like it will, um, we will allow that. So if you're seeing something different, maybe we should talk.
Well, I'll look to upgrade as soon as possible.
I noticed, I'm pretty sure, let's see, I'm going to double check on my original again. Trying to see what server this is. So this is going out through a service called auth SMTP. It's entirely possible that your SMTP server might reject such an email if it's so if you're seeing rejection, double check to see um, if your SMTP server rejects those, because from what I can tell, we don't. And I don't think it's necessarily the 120. I don't know that there's any particular change in 127. It could be have been this way forever, and it's just a SMTP server restriction. So let us know what you find out.
Will do.
Since we've made it within 2 minutes of the hour, I'm just going to call it here. Thank you for joining us for Low Code Campfire, our 200th episode. Anybody who didn't get the very fancy background, be happy to share it with you if you were here. So with that, come back for 201 next week, next Friday, and we'll do it all again. Hang around for a few minutes for Afterglow if you have the inclination.